The sound of glass shattering against the wall echoed through the empty Vineyard house, followed by Leila Morgan's strangled sob. The lawyer had just left after delivering the news her grandmother Evelyn had passed away, leaving Leila her prized Sonoma Valley vineyard, a vineyard drowning in debt. "What am I supposed to do with this?" Leila whispered, sinking to her knees among the shards of what used to be her grandmother's favorite wine glass. The irony wasn't lost on her. At 29, Leila had built a respectable career as a wildlife photographer in San Francisco, her life a series of expeditions and deadlines. Vineyards weren't part of the plan. Yet here she was, owner of 15 acres of struggling grapevines and a charming but deteriorating villa that held her most cherished childhood memories. The lawyer's words haunted her. "You have 3 options, Miss Morgan. Sell immediately to cover the debts, attempt to run it yourself, or find an investor." His sympathetic smile hadn't reached his eyes. "Most people in your position sell. There's already been interest." Leila walked through the rows of vines the next morning, trailing her fingers along the leaves. The vineyard had been her sanctuary every summer growing up. She remembered Grandma Evelyn teaching her how to test grapes for sweetness, how to feel the soil between her fingers and know when it needed water. "I can't just give this up," she murmured, the morning fog still clinging to the valley. Her phone buzzed. Her editor reminding her about the Africa assignment she was supposed to leave for next week, a career-making opportunity that couldn't be postponed. "Perfect timing as always, Grandma," Leila said to the sky, a sad smile playing on her lips. She spent the day exploring the property, reacquainting herself with what was now hers. The small production facility needed upgrades. The villa's roof had seen better days. But the vines, the 30-year-old Cabernet Sauvignon vines her grandmother had planted with her own hands, they were magnificent despite their neglect. That evening, Leila made a decision. She would postpone her assignment, take 3 months to assess the vineyard, and then decide. She couldn't bear making such a monumental decision without trying. 2 days later, Leila found herself face to face with Dominic, the vineyard manager who'd worked with her grandmother for the past decade. "I warned her about the debts," he said, his weathered face sympathetic. "The last 3 harvests weren't kind. The equipment is failing. We need investment." "I know," Leila nodded, "but I want to try at least for a little while. Can you teach me?" Dominic's skeptical expression softened. "You have your grandmother's spirit." "I'll help where I can, but we need money, Miss Morgan. Soon." Money, the one thing Leila didn't have. Her photography paid the bills but left little for savings, let alone revitalizing a vineyard. The reality of her situation became painfully clear the next day when the bank representative called. Principal payments were 3 months overdue. They were being generous, giving her 60 days to sort out the situation before foreclosure proceedings began. 2 months, Leila whispered after hanging up. "I have 2 months to save 30 years of my grandmother's work." That's when Dominic suggested meeting with a potential buyer who'd expressed interest before Evelyn's death. "He's got deep pockets and knowledge. Even if you don't sell, maybe he'll invest." "Fine," Leila agreed reluctantly. "Set it up." She hadn't expected Isaac Whitfield to be so young. Or so handsome. When he stepped out of his sleek black Range Rover, Leila was in the middle of the vineyard, hands dirty, hair messily tied back, wearing her grandmother's old gardening clothes. Not exactly how she'd planned to meet a potential investor, Miss Morgan. His voice was deep, confident. He extended a hand, apparently unbothered by her soil-covered fingers. "Isaac Whitfield, I appreciate you taking this meeting." Leila quickly wiped her hand on her jeans before shaking his. "Mr. Whitfield, sorry about," she gestured to her disheveled appearance. He smiled, revealing a slight dimple in his left cheek. "You look exactly like someone who's working a vineyard should look." Up close, Leila could see he was maybe early 30s, with dark hair that curled slightly at the temples and eyes the color of well-aged bourbon. His casual attire, expensive jeans, and a simple button-down rolled at the sleeves couldn't hide what was clearly a body kept in excellent shape. "Shall we walk the property?" she suggested, suddenly self-conscious. Isaac nodded, falling into step beside her. Dominic mentioned you inherited recently. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Leila appreciated that he didn't launch straight into business. Did you know my grandmother? Only by reputation. Evelyn Morgan was known for her incredible palate and dedication to sustainable farming before it was trendy. He stopped to examine a vine, his fingers expertly checking the leaves. These vines have good bones despite recent neglect. Leila raised an eyebrow. You know vineyards. I should, Isaac said with a slight smile. I own 3 of them. As they continued walking, Isaac asked intelligent questions about water sources, soil composition, and yield history. Leila answered what she could, relieved when Dominic joined them to fill in the technical gaps. Your grandmother created something special here, Isaac said as they ended their tour at the small wine tasting building. The terroir is excellent. With the right investment, this place could produce world-class wines again. Leila felt a flicker of hope. That's what I want to hear, but you're wondering if I'm just saying this to lowball you and flip the property. Isaac finished for her. She blushed. The thought crossed my mind. Fair enough. He gestured toward the tasting room. May I? Inside, Leila watched as Isaac examined the space with a critical eye, running his hand along the old oak bar her grandmother had salvaged from a San Francisco restaurant in the 1980s. I'm not interested in flipping properties, Miss Morgan. I believe in preserving vineyard legacies. He turned to face her. What I'd like to propose is a partnership. I provide the capital for modernization and expansion. You maintain creative control and your family name on the label. Leila stared at him. That's generous. What's the catch? No catch. I get a controlling interest and return on investment, but you stay involved. Your grandmother's methods combined with modern technology. He held her gaze. Think about it, no rush, but there was a rush and they both knew it. Why don't you join me for dinner tonight? Isaac suggested. We can discuss details and you can get to know me better before making any decisions. Leila hesitated. It was a business dinner clearly, but something in his expression made her heart beat a little faster. I'd like that, she found herself saying. That evening, Leila drove to meet Isaac at a small, upscale restaurant in Healdsburg. She'd changed into the only nice outfit she'd packed, a simple navy dress that her friend once said made her eyes look like the Mediterranean. Isaac was waiting outside, looking even more handsome in a tailored blazer. His smile when he saw her contained something that went beyond professional interest. You look beautiful, he said simply. Over wine, not from her vineyard, she noted with amusement. Isaac told her about his background. He'd grown up in Oregon, the son of a small winery owner. After business school, he'd worked for a large wine distributor before striking out on his own. 10 years ago, I bought my first failing vineyard and turned it around, he explained. Now I have 3 successful properties, but each maintains its own identity. And you want mine to be number 4, Leila said. Isaac tilted his head. I want to save what your grandmother built. The Morgan vineyard has a history and character that can't be manufactured. As dinner progressed, their conversation shifted from business to personal. Leila found herself telling him about her photography career, her travels, and the summers spent with her grandmother. The vineyard is where I learned to see beauty in small details, she admitted. It actually shaped how I approach photography. Isaac seemed genuinely interested, asking thoughtful questions about her work and perspectives. By dessert, Leila realized with a start that she was enjoying herself more than she had on any date in recent memory, even though this wasn't a date. What about you? She asked, watching him over the rim of her wine glass. All business, or is there more to Isaac Whitfield? A shadow crossed his face. Work has been my focus. After my father's vineyard failed and he lost everything, I promised myself I'd build something lasting. He gave a rueful smile. Doesn't leave much time for personal entanglements. Entanglements, Leila laughed. Is that what they're calling relationships these days? His eyes crinkled at the corners. Terrible word choice. Let's just say my romantic history is limited. A successful, attractive businessman who's married to his work. How original, she teased. Isaac laughed, a rich sound that made something warm unfurl in Leila's chest. I deserved that. When the check came, Isaac insisted on paying, Business expense, he said with a wink. Outside, under a sky scattered with stars, he walked her to her car. Think about my offer, he said softly. I believe we could create something exceptional together. The way he said it made Leila wonder if he was still talking strictly about wine. I will, she promised. Thank you for dinner. Thank you for your company. He hesitated, then added, regardless of your decision about the vineyard, I'd like to see you again, Leila. The sound of her name on his lips sent a shiver down her spine. I'd like that too. Over the next 2 weeks, Leila divided her time between learning the vineyard operations from Dominic and researching Isaac Whitfield. What she discovered impressed her. His vineyards were known for sustainable practices and exceptional quality. The workers spoke highly of him. And unlike many investors, he maintained the original character of each property he acquired. Isaac, meanwhile, became a frequent visitor. He brought in experts to assess the vineyard at his own expense, shared knowledge about improving soil conditions, and even rolled up his sleeves to help repair the irrigation system when it failed unexpectedly. You don't have to do this, Leila said, watching him work alongside Dominic in the hot sun. Isaac wiped sweat from his brow. I know, but I want to. They fell into a pattern. Work during the day, dinner together most evenings. Sometimes at local restaurants, sometimes simple meals Leila prepared in the villa's kitchen. Their conversations ranged from passionate debates about organic farming methods to sharing childhood stories over glasses of wine. Leila found herself looking forward to seeing him each day, her heart racing whenever his car appeared in the driveway. It was becoming increasingly difficult to remember this was supposed to be a business relationship. One evening, as they sat on the villa's porch watching the sunset paint the vineyard gold, Isaac turned to her. You haven't mentioned your photography assignment. Wasn't it supposed to start by now? Leila sighed. I postponed it, then I turned it down completely yesterday. Leila, you shouldn't give up your career for this place, Isaac said, concern evident in his voice. I'm not giving it up, just redirecting. She looked out over the vines. I've been thinking about documenting the seasons of a vineyard, the rebirth of this place. It could be a powerful collection. Isaac was quiet for a moment. You're falling in love with it again. Yes, she said softly, not looking at him, because she was falling in love with more than just the vineyard. The following day, Isaac arrived with his lawyer and a formal investment proposal. As Leila read through the detailed document at her grandmother's old desk, she had to admit it was fair. More than fair, actually. Isaac would invest enough to clear all debts and modernize operations. Leila would retain 40% ownership and creative control over the wine production. The Morgan name would remain. This is generous, she said, looking up at him. It's practical, he replied. Your grandmother's methods combined with modern equipment will create exceptional wines, and having you involved maintains the vineyard's soul. Leila tapped the pen against the desk. Why are you really doing this, Isaac? There are easier investments, he held her gaze. Because I believe in this place, and... He hesitated. I believe in you. Something in his expression made her breath catch. There was more he wasn't saying. I need time to think, she said, of course. He stood. Take all the time you need. I'll be out of town for a few days anyway, meetings in Napa. Call me when you decide. After he left, Leila felt his absence like a physical thing. The vineyard seemed quieter the days longer. She threw herself into work, helping Dominic with preparations for the upcoming harvest while mulling over Isaac's offer. On the third day, Dominic found her in the production facility, examining the outdated equipment. You're in love with him, the old vineyard manager said without preamble. Leila nearly dropped the clipboard she was holding. What? I'm not. Don't bother denying it. I've known you since you were knee-high to a grapevine. Dominic leaned against a fermentation tank. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Nothing, Leila said firmly. This is business, Dominic, is it? He raised an eyebrow. Because he looks at you the way a man dying of thirst looks at water, and you're not much better. Leila felt her cheeks grow hot. Even if that were true, mixing business and whatever this is would be complicated. Life is complicated, child. Dominic straightened up. Your grandmother would tell you to follow your heart, in business and in love. That evening, Leila drove to Napa, having gotten Isaac's hotel information from his assistant. She'd made her decision about the vineyard, but she needed to see him in person. Needed to understand what was happening between them before signing any contracts. When Isaac opened his hotel room door, his surprise was evident. "Leila, is everything all right?" She brushed past him into the room, suddenly nervous. "I've been thinking about your offer." And his expression was guarded. "And I have questions, not about the business terms." She took a deep breath. "About your intentions." Isaac's brow furrowed. "I'm not sure I understand." "When you look at me, what do you see?" Leila asked bluntly. "A business partner, the keeper of your investment, or something else?" Something flickered in his eyes, vulnerability, maybe even fear. "Leila." "Because when I look at you," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "I see someone I'm falling for, and before I sign anything, I need to know if that's going to be a problem." Isaac stared at her for a long moment, then crossed the room in 2 strides. His hands cradled her face with unexpected gentleness. "The only problem," he said softly, "is that I've been trying very hard not to kiss you for weeks." "Why?" she whispered, her heart pounding. "Because I didn't want you to think my investment came with strings attached." His thumbs brushed her cheeks. "Because your vineyard is important to you, and I respect that, because I didn't want to complicate things." "Things are already complicated," Leila said, leaning into his touch. "So you might as well kiss me," and he did. His lips were warm and certain against hers, his arms wrapping around her waist to pull her closer. Leila melted into him, her hands finding their way into his hair as the kiss deepened from tentative to passionate. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you in those dirty overalls, looking completely in your element among the vines." Leila laughed softly. "Not my finest moment. I disagree." "You were beautiful, authentic." His expression grew serious. "I need you to know my offer stands regardless of this. If you want a purely business relationship, I'll respect that. And if I want more," Leila asked, "then I'd be the luckiest man in the world." His smile was tender. "But the choice is yours, Leila, no pressure." She kissed him again, softly this time. "I choose both the partnership and, whatever this is between us, let's see where it goes." That night changed everything and nothing. They still had a vineyard to save, but now they faced it together, stealing kisses between business discussions and falling asleep in each other's arms after long days of work. When the harvest season arrived a month later, the vineyard hummed with activity. With Isaac's investment, Leila had been able to hire adequate staff and repair critical equipment. The grapes were coming in beautifully better quality than the vineyard had produced in years. "Your grandmother would be proud," Isaac said one evening, finding Leila in the production facility, monitoring the new sorting table he'd helped install. She smiled, leaning back against him as his arms encircled her waist. "I think she orchestrated this whole thing from beyond. Leaving me a failing vineyard, knowing you were interested in buying it. Matchmaking from the afterlife," Isaac chuckled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "She always said I needed someone who understood the value of patience and hard work. Wine and love both need time to develop properly, she'd say. Smart woman." Isaac turned her in his arms. "Speaking of which, there's something I've been meaning to show you." He led her to his car and drove them to a secluded hilltop overlooking the entire valley. The sun was just beginning to set, painting the vineyards below in rich golds and reds. "I found this spot the day before I met you," Isaac said, taking her hand as they stood at the edge. "I came here to think about whether buying another vineyard was the right move for my business." "And what did you decide?" Leila asked. "That it made perfect sense." He turned to face her. "What I didn't realize was that I'd find much more than a business opportunity. I found you," Leila's heart swelled. "I never expected any of this when I inherited the vineyard. I thought I'd sell it quickly and get back to my life. Now I can't imagine not being here with the vines, with you." Isaac took both her hands in his. "These past months have shown me what I've been missing, focusing only on business. You've taught me that success means nothing without someone to share it with." "Isaac." Leila began, but he pressed a finger gently to her lips. "Let me finish. I know it's fast, probably too fast by conventional standards, but nothing about us has been conventional. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I'm not proposing, not yet, but I want you to have this. Inside was a delicate ring featuring a small emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds. It was my grandmother's, Isaac explained. A promise ring she received from my grandfather when they were young. They went on to run their vineyard together for 50 years. Leila's eyes filled with tears as he continued, "This is my promise to you, that whatever happens with the business, my feelings for you are separate and real. That I'm in this for the long haul, however long you need. It's beautiful," she whispered as he slipped it onto her right hand. "And for the record, I'm in this for the long haul too." Their kiss beneath the setting sun sealed more than a business partnership. It sealed a future neither had imagined when they first met among the struggling vines. The following spring, the Morgan Vineyard released its first new vintage under joint ownership. The labels, redesigned by Leila, featured a subtle watermark of two intertwined grapevines, representing not just the business partnership but the personal one that had blossomed alongside it. Critics praised the wine, noting its perfect balance of traditional methods and modern techniques. Orders flowed in from prestigious restaurants and collectors. The vineyard that had been on the brink of bankruptcy was now being hailed as one of the region's rising stars. "We did it," Leila said, clinking her glass against Isaac's as they celebrated in the renovated tasting room. Around them, local vineyard owners and wine industry representatives mingled, all eager to taste the Morgan Whitfield collaboration. "You did it," Isaac corrected. "This was your vision, Leila. I just provided the tools." She shook her head. "We did it together. That's our strength." Later that night, after the last guests had departed, Isaac led Leila to the old oak tree at the vineyard's center, the one her grandmother had often sat beneath. Planning each season's work, fairy lights had been strung through the branches, illuminating the small table set for two beneath it. A bottle of their new release stood open, breathing in the night air. "What's all this?" Leila asked, smiling at the romantic setting. "1 year ago today, I met a stubborn, beautiful woman covered in dirt who was determined to save her grandmother's legacy." Isaac guided her to a seat. "She didn't trust me at first, which was understandably wise," Leila laughed. "You have to admit, a wealthy businessman suddenly interested in a failing vineyard seems suspicious." "Fair point," he conceded with a grin. "But I like to think I won her over with my extensive knowledge of soil pH and fermentation temperatures." "That and your kissing technique," Leila teased. Isaac's expression grew serious. "This past year has been the happiest of my life, Leila. Finding success is meaningless if you don't have the right person to share it with." Leila reached across the table to take his hand. "I feel the same way. I never expected to find love when I inherited this place. I thought I was just getting land and debts. Instead, you got a bossy investor who fell head over heels for you," Isaac finished. "Best inheritance ever," she said softly. Isaac stood and moved to kneel beside her chair. "Leila Morgan, I promised you once that I was in this for the long haul. Now I'm asking if you'll make it official." He produced a ring box containing a stunning vintage-style diamond. "Will you marry me? Be my partner in life the way you've been my partner in wine?" Tears spilled down Leila's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, replacing the promise ring she now wore as a pendant around her neck, Leila couldn't help thinking how perfectly their story had unfolded. She'd inherited a struggling vineyard and found a man who wanted to nurture both the land and her heart. "Your grandmother would be very pleased with herself right now," Isaac said, as if reading her thoughts. Leila laughed through her tears. "She always did say the best wines and the best loves both begin with a leap of faith." 2 years later, Leila and Isaac exchanged vows in the center of the vineyard, surrounded by flourishing vines and beloved friends. Dominic, serving as Leila's man of honor, wiped away tears as they recited promises to nurture their love as carefully as they nurtured the land that had brought them together. Their wedding wine, a special blend they'd created together, bore a label reading "Inherited Blessings," a tribute to the unexpected gift that had changed both their lives. That evening, as they danced under the stars in the same spot where he'd proposed, Isaac whispered, "Did I ever tell you I almost didn't come to see the vineyard that day? I had another meeting scheduled." "What made you change your mind?" Leila asked, her head resting against his chest. "Something my father said when I called him for advice. He told me the best investments aren't just about the land or the product, they're about the heart behind them." Isaac's arms tightened around her. He was right, but not in the way either of us expected. Leila smiled up at her husband. "Here's to inherited vineyards and harvested hearts. And to your grandmother," Isaac added, "the finest matchmaker in the afterlife." As they swayed beneath the same stars that had watched over generations of winemakers before them, Leila thought about the journey that had brought them here. From reluctant vineyard owner to passionate winemaker. From suspicious of Isaac's intentions to building a life with him. The vineyard that had once been her burden had become their shared passion, producing award-winning wines that honored her grandmother's legacy while creating their own. What had begun as a business transaction had harvested the greatest love either of them had known. And as the full moon rose over the thriving vines, casting silver light across acres that would someday belong to their children, Leila knew that this love, this land, this life they were creating together was the most precious inheritance of all.